So, like in parts of Malaysia, the coastline on the Andaman Sea has the mangrove forest. And one guide there was telling me that when the tsunami came, the mangrove forests basically destroyed the tsunami because the mangrove forests are so dense and they are so intricate that the wave of the massive force of the tsunami goes and hits them and nothing happens. It just dissipates. So enterprises are a bit like the mangrove forest, you know.
I mean, today, everybody that I talk to, I see on Twitter, everywhere, people throw around the term enterprise grade AI. What does enterprise grade really mean?
Company like Siemens or a company like Coca-Cola, these are like civilizations, you know, these are like societies, these are like countries, and you have to serve them in those ways.
One of the themes that's being talked about today is a combination of AI and services, therefore. Would you say that that's a great opportunity for India today, or would you believe that, look, it's actually not that big an opportunity?
It's a great opportunity, period. Every time something like generative AI comes, there are a whole new collection of applications that show up that were simply not possible. So don't just think about transforming what is known today. Also think about what is it that is now possible that is completely new.
So, folks, today I'm sitting down with someone with whom I've had the privilege of working with very closely, who has been a mentor for now 20 years, and someone who has had one of the most fascinating journeys in the enterprise technology space, Vishal Sikka. Vishal's story is remarkable. He was an entrepreneur, then he led the creation of HANA at SAP, one of the most important enterprise products of the last 2 decades for SAP, and then played a very key role in SAP's cloud transformation. He then took on the challenge of leading Infosys, where he pushed the boundaries of what services companies could become in the digital age. And along the way, he has sat on the boards of Oracle, BMW, GSK, shaping strategy at some of the world's largest enterprises in the world. And after all that, he has decided to go back to being a founder and build a company again, Vianai, with the mission of making enterprise AI more trustworthy and reliable. And I think I'll be remiss if I don't mention, which I'm assuming many people don't know, is that Vishal was actually the first backer of OpenAI back in 2015 when he was the CEO of Infosys. Vishal and I first crossed paths back in SAP days. And Vishal, you will not remember this, but this was on a flight back from Boston to the Bay Area. And I've always admired how he blends deep technical insights with a sense of big picture vision. Today, we'll go through his journey and draw lessons for the AI world, both for enterprises and for founders. Vishal, thank you so much for talking to us and welcome to the show.
It is really a pleasure, Alok. 20 years, that's quite
Yeah, it was indeed 2005.
2005, yeah.
Yeah. So, Vishal, given that our common roots go back to SAP, I'll actually begin with our SAP days, where you spearheaded HANA and played a central role also in the cloud transformation of SAP, right? I mean, today, everybody that I talk to, I see on Twitter, everywhere, people throw around the term enterprise grade AI, right? From your experience, what does enterprise grade really mean? And what are the non negotiables when you're building systems that the Fortune 500 companies will stake their business on?
I serve on GSK's board, and GSK is parts of GSK have been around for more than 300 years. So when you work with companies like that, they have incredibly distinguished backgrounds. So there is a sense of reliability, um, of scale. There is a sense of security, of the burdens that those enterprises carry. Like in GSK, there is a tremendous burden of because it is you're building medicines,
Yeah.
of safety and of various regulatory requirements around the world. Some, they're all of different natures. When you're making vaccines, especially with the cold supply chain vaccines, or just regular medicines. Um, and then companies like BMW, what happens in software cannot really happen in cars, if you know. Um,
Yeah.
you cannot just have a reboot on a car and this kind of a thing.
Right.
There is a very strong sense of capabilities that you need in the products. And both Oracle and SAP serve other businesses. And I mean, when we were at SAP, we used to run basically all of the world's financial systems, pretty much all of the world's manufacturing systems, supply chain, production, all of these things, logistics. So that's an incredible burden that you carry. And so it has to be as a startup, when you're trying to serve enterprises, it has to be a part of your culture, of the way that you work, that you um, are aware, you pay respect to the fact that when you serve these companies, you have to live by their standards. A company like Siemens, or a company like Coca-Cola, these are like civilizations. These are like societies. These are like countries, um, and you have to serve them in those ways. In Silicon Valley, there is this sort of a culture of move fast and break things and things like that, which is quite dangerous. On the other hand, and I want to share, especially with your portfolio companies, this one principle that I learned. And Alok, you might remember I used to talk about this in the timeless software
Yeah.
days when I wrote the principles of timeless software. That when you are building a new thing, which every startup does, there has to be a culture of experimentation. There has to be a culture of rapid increments which are in outside contact, meaning in contact with customers, with clients, with end users. And then you learn and you iterate very fast. And with each iteration, you get better. And some of the iterations will fail, and there will be lessons that you learn, and so on. But that is not the same as building unreliable systems.
Right.
Building a scalable and reliable system goes hand in hand with experimenting and rapid iterative experiments with which you learn what it is that needs to go in there. And successful startups need to keep these two principles in their mind at the same time. Um, I remember when you talked about HANA. I'll share two examples. When we were building HANA, HANA was an in-memory database. And people used to say, in-memory databases, well, memory, you turn off the machine, the memory is gone. How is it going to be reliable? Many traditional database vendors used to make fun of us, including Oracle, which later I served on the board of for 5 years. They used to joke about the fact that how is SAP going to make an in-memory database? And we not only made the database, it runs some of the biggest companies. Now the entire product line runs on HANA. To this
Yes.
day, every single product of the company now runs on HANA. It was an unthinkable thing. We had companies like Walmart or Apple, huge companies, Procter and Gamble, Nestle, who would run billions of transactions in a day on HANA with no problem. We had analytics running with hundreds of billions of records already 10 years ago. And so it is possible to build that. You have to have the culture of you have to have the know-how, but you have to have the mindset. But you have to, most importantly, you have to have the culture to do that. And more recently, when I was at Infosys, Alok, I'll just mention one thing quickly because of India. We built the GSTN system, which powers GST, and I worked very heavily on that. Mr. Jaitley was the finance minister in those days, and Mrs. Sitaraman was the Minister of Corporate Affairs. We used to work with them. I used to review this on a weekly basis. Naveen, he was the main architect of that. And Naveen used to, of course, work on that on a daily basis. And when we were building it, people used to say, because the architecture is entirely indigenous, the architecture of GSTN, it doesn't have any commercial product in it. It's all open source based. We designed it to be fully scalable, partitionable, distributed on commodity hardware, all open source products. And we built it, and there weren't even people there. We, in fact, the people used to come and tell me, sir, where are we going to hire these people from who have these skills? And we realized that you couldn't hire them, and so we trained them. We actually built a flight simulator. We used to call it a flight simulator, where we would train kids out of schools or people with some experience in some adjacent fields, and we would train them on the system while they were building it. And this is how we built GSTN. It has now. I was reading about it recently when I was in India. 200 and so about $1 billion worth of transactions fly through GSTN every day.
Yeah. Wow.
$1 billion. So this is like 100 billion rupees per day go through GSTN. And there
Wow.
has, knock on wood, there has not been one major unscheduled outage of this. It's been 8 years since we released it.
So, Vishal, given what you just talked about, the enterprises where they need reliability, uptime, accuracy, performance, and on the other hand, you look at the world of AI, which is fundamentally probabilistic and error prone. How do you now merge these two? How do you bring AI into the world of enterprise environments where they need all that strict accuracy and reliability?
And that's an excellent question. In the technology itself is inherently there is an inherent unreliability built into it because of the, like you said, the probabilistic or the approximate nature of inference in LLMs. These are not deterministic machines. These are things that, and in fact, companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, there is a parameter called temperature, which your entrepreneurs would be familiar with. They set it so that it actually produces somewhat random outputs to keep things interesting. And normally, if you set the temperature at the fully level where out of the candidate next tokens, it only picks the most likely one, then it will always produce the same outcome every time. But what they do is they change the temperature so that it can randomly pick out of the top five next likely tokens. And that keeps things interesting for whatever set of reason. So they actually bake some more unreliability into
Yeah,
the design of the thing itself.
yeah,
And so what happens is the architectural aspects that I talked about, that is one part of it, how to keep things secure, how to make things reliable, scalable, high performance, and things like that. But then on top of it, when you use LLMs as a core piece of software in your stack, now you have this additional problem that the thing itself is you cannot really rely on. And so what happens is understanding the characteristics of your applications becomes that much more important. So, for example, there are categories of applications where the correct answer does not really matter. So you're asking it to, make a summary of a meeting or write an essay about something or summarize a document. In these kinds of applications, it is not like you're asking for a 10 candidates for movies to watch this weekend or parks in London in which to do a picnic or whatever. Um, so in these applications, the correct answer doesn't really matter. So it is a matter of designing the system in the right way, understanding the user, serving them in the right way, and all this kind of thing. But then there are enterprise applications where the right answer matters. And so, how do you do that when the underlying foundation itself is unreliable? So this is the area that we work on in my company, in Vianai, in my company, we work on this. Um, the You have to build this. Andre Karpathy calls it putting AI on a leash. You have to build the leash around the AI. You have to build the guardrails. In our case, it is a knowledge model that we build around the AI. So whatever domain it is that we serve, for example, if we do conversational analytics for finance, for CFOs, we build a knowledge model for finance. And that knowledge model helps the system understand when it is going on thin ice, when it is answering questions that it does not fully understand, when it has either the answer is unreliable or the question is in a part of space that it doesn't know much about. So it will tell the user that, hey, I don't really understand this. Instead of answering the question incorrectly or hallucinating, it will tell the system, tell the user that I'm not comfortable with this question. Maybe you can rephrase it, or it will even know that you are asking about something that I don't have knowledge about. So that is one way that we have found of injecting sort of overlaying reliability. But generally, from a system design point of view, uh, you can overlay reliability into systems, but it is a good idea to go into the bedrock. Um, so, for example, we use LLMs to generate software, And then we have other ways of making sure that the software it generated, the code that it wrote, is correct and things like that. So you carry the burden, and enterprises are very stringent about this. So you carry the burden of making sure that your system is doing the right thing.
That's right. That's right. So, Vishal, this is a theme I'm actually going to come back to. I have some interesting hypotheses I'll run by you later in our discussion. But I will go back to the likes of SAP and Oracle. And I mean, while I also now live the life of startups, but one of the narratives that has been there over the last 2 years is that when you look at these large incumbents, they have decades of proprietary data, right? And they know how to work across very complex systems. Right? And therefore, one of the questions that comes is that do these incumbents have a structural environment advantage? I'm sorry, in the world of AI, which may not have been true in the past, and that is because of the data that they carry this advantage. Would you agree, disagree, or do you think that this advantage is overstated?
No, there is a clear advantage. There is a clear differentiation or a competitiveness that they have because of the data that they have. Um, the thing is that every time we interact with ChatGPT or with Claude, we are enriching it with our own interaction, and we don't realize it. It started already with Google and systems like that 20, 25 years ago, that we started to become the product. Rather than being the consumer, we are actually the consumed. We don't realize this.
Yeah.
Um, like when you look at Facebook or Instagram, we are the product, you know. That's why the damn thing is free.
Yeah.
the And so with generative AI, this trend is continuing and arguably becoming even worse because it takes a synthesis of everything that we produce. And so every time enterprises send their data, send their documents, send their schemas to these public LLMs, the foundation models, they are essentially enriching them with data that is theirs. And so a better approach is that you bring the open source models or LLM technology inside the enterprise, and you build your solutions around that. So that's why the open source models is such an important piece of the puzzle there, that whether it is Llama or the Chinese models or the other models, that you are able to combine proprietary knowledge, what is in the code, in your data, and all of that, plus whatever is inside the enterprise. That together helps you become a more intelligent enterprise. This is really important. So I think that private data is a very fundamental part of it. But at the same time, we have to understand the big model companies, whether it is OpenAI or Google or Anthropic, etc., Meta, um, they are trying every which way they can to get to that data. Um, I mean, I was astonished by how well they know about the schemas of major enterprise systems and things like that. So it is like a race, but I think the proprietary data is one of the few remaining places that these models have not yet reached. And therefore, that can be a big advantage.
So, Vishal, I'll switch from now the provider actually to the buyers, which are the enterprises themselves, right? And we saw that, I mean, somewhere in the mid 2000s, the transformation towards the cloud began to happen, but it took a while. Now, as we see the world of AI, actually, I'm curious to understand how the enterprise buyers are reacting to it. Are they moving faster, slower? What impact is it having on the buying cycles and therefore the sales cycles as well?
The cloud transformation took a long time. It used to be, I mean, Amazon was doubling quarter over quarter, year over year for a long time, and yet it was a very tiny piece of the overall IT spend for a
Yeah,
long time, like more than 10 years later. It was, I remember when Andy used to be the chief of staff to Jeff Bezos, and I had worked with him back in 2006 when EC2 came out,
right.
S3 and the block storage and EC2 came out. We actually ran an old version of SAP on the 10 cents an hour EC2 machine. And he was so blown away by it that Sanjog, who ran that project for me, he had gone to Seattle when Andy presented to Jeff Bezos that this needs to be an enterprise offering. This was in January of 2007. Um, And in February of 2007, we presented it at the SAP Supervisory Board meeting. That look,
Wow.
on 10 cents an hour, you can run an entire R3 system. It's unbelievable. So cloud took a long time to adopt in the enterprise. Um, AI is going to be faster, but it is still quite slow. Now it is. We are approaching 3 years since ChatGPT. There is not one major enterprise application of AI that you can point to. Not one. The word of ChatGPT and what it could be basically literally spread overnight. So by January of 2023, everybody wanted to know, what does this mean for me? What can I do? By April or so of that year, everybody had started POCs and pilots and things like that. And so there was the awareness was ridiculously faster than internet. Although I was quite young when the internet boom happened, um, and definitely then the mobile and cloud transition. But at the same time, to your earlier question about reliability and enterprise readiness, a lot of these capabilities will have to be answered before um, before AI becomes successful in the enterprise. Today, what you see is tons of pilots and proofs of concepts, or lots of adoptions in areas where the correct outcome doesn't really matter. Like even search, like Glean or Perplexity, or summarization, meeting note taking, these kinds of things. These are being adopted. And on a spiritual note, I was in Asia until last week, and there are mangrove forests. Um, so, like in parts of Malaysia, the coastline on the Andaman Sea has the mangrove forest. And one guide there was telling me that when the tsunami came, in 2004 or whenever the tsunami was, the mangrove forests basically destroyed the tsunami. The tsunami just passes through them and nothing happens on the other side of the mangrove, because the
Yeah.
mangrove forests are so dense and they are so intricate that the
Yeah.
wave of the massive force of the tsunami goes and hits them and nothing happens. It just dissipates.
Yeah.
Uh, so enterprises are a bit like the mangrove forest,
We can trust Vishal for you to give some analogies like that. Vishal, I'm tempted to ask you a question, which in some ways, while you have talked about, but there is also a popular narrative I see in the last 6 to 9 months, which is claiming that, you know what, this concept of packaged software itself is going to be dead. Why? Because anybody can build their own application just through AI now. You tell what to build, it'll build, and you don't even need these packaged applications anymore, right? Or any specialized tools, right? Now, maybe there is some truth to software being generated too, but where do you think the balance will lie in the end here?
I think that again there are multiple competing perspectives that we should keep in mind at the same time. One is that there is no doubt that software development has become dramatically more productive.
Yeah,
Somebody who knows what they are doing can build software really, really efficiently. One person with a fraction of their time can do the work that a team of people would take weeks to do.
yeah.
One of my friends who used to be a fellow at Google, a distinguished fellow, and now he is a distinguished fellow at Microsoft, he was telling me that he had a team of 15 people who built a system for him over 9 months, and he himself rewrote that in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Um, and of course, he is a genius and he knows what he is doing. So that is one point of view. The second point of view is that AI makes very serious mistakes. And while it is better at software, and this is why we have put our entire company on this bet, um, it does make mistakes in software development as well. It actually makes unusual mistakes, which are very difficult to catch for people. It's not like when you do QA on other people's code.
Yeah,
For example, it generates fake library names. This is one of the
yeah.
interesting mistakes that AI makes, is that the libraries that you include, it will sometimes make up the name of a library. And it has become a business for these hackers and squatters, that they imagine the name of a library that these AI systems will create, and they put that library on GitHub and stuff, and then they have malware sitting inside that. so that inadvertently, without even realizing that you made a mistake, you have just now imported malware in your system. Imagine. Um, so there are these kinds of really complex and unusual mistakes that AI makes. Um, and then, and so, what does that mean? What that means is that it is an incredible tool in the hands of people who know what they are doing. So, if you are a good product manager, if you are a good architect, you
Yeah.
are all of a sudden you have you have been given wings and you have been given a jetpack, and now you can fly from here to Hong Kong in 1 hour. Um, and it is an incredible power. But at the same time, it is also very disruptive to younger people and things like that. So, this is one pair of perspectives. On the other side, what does this mean for software? We believe that the inherent inefficiency in the enterprise landscape, there is a tremendous opportunity now to simplify that. So, there is clearly a lot of unnecessary complexity in the enterprise. And this complexity can be thrown out. And we can dramatically simplify it. So our product today applies this to for example, to analytics. And so the act of getting a business user, somebody working in finance or somebody working in procurement, the information that they need to run their business, to carry out their strategy. Today, it's a very inefficient process. It's a very expensive process. It is a broken process. So you are given these reports in Power BI or Tableau or whatever. And you and I used to sell this stuff long ago. Um, but what happens is if you have a question that is not in your standard Power BI dashboard, you ask someone, "Hey, can you give me how did we do in Latin America where we introduced this new product last quarter?" And the guy says, "Well, I'll get back to you in 5 days," because it takes him 5 days to build a
True.
dashboard. And in 5 days, you have forgotten why you wanted to know about what was happening in Latin America, and. So that inefficiency will go away.
Yeah.
Um, so software vendors, and there are many software vendors who have not updated their products, who became lazy over time. Those products now can be disrupted a lot more easily. Like when we were at SAP, we used to think that it would take a incredible, impossible effort to rebuild something like this. You have thousands of people working every year, adding to an already existing massive code base. But now, all of a sudden, that stuff has become reachable because of
Yeah.
the incredible productivity improvement. Um, so, I think so. There are multiple competing points of view on
That's
this,
right.
but there is no doubt that there is a dramatic simplification for enterprise IT that is coming. That the capability of that is here already. It will keep getting better. But it is still in the hands of people who are determined to go after a particular goal, people who know what they are doing, that this power applies. It is not magic that some guy off the street says, "Oh, okay, let me go and build a bill of materials and
Right.
transaction management system." It doesn't work like that.
So, Vishal, let me switch the context a little to India now, right? And I mean, if we look at it over the last, I would say 25 to 30 years, it's been magical how internet enabled services, whether it's BPO, but also the IT services, have just gone through a massive boom in the country. We are talking market capitalization worth at least half a trillion today in India, just coming from that segment. And I'm not even counting the value from GCCs here, right? And you were at Infosys where you pushed very hard for modernization while also investing in innovation. But the core of the services industry lies on the labor arbitrage that exists, right? But with AI, there is a danger that that changes that equation altogether, right? So, in your opinion, how should services firms adapt in this new era without undermining their core business?
So when I started at Infosys, AlexNet was already there 2 years before. So I started in 2014, and in 2012, AlexNet had beaten human performance on computer vision. So you could see the trajectory of where this was going. Um, and so I used to, if you read my shareholder letters and my speeches at that time, this is what I used to talk about. So what happens is that the basic proposition of a services company is that a bunch of people will do something, whether it is a maintenance project or a software development project or an upgrade of SAP or integration of Salesforce or whatever. And these 20 people or 50 people will come and they will do this thing, and they are much cheaper than 20 people or 50 people from elsewhere. Now, as we just discussed earlier, instead of 50 people, now you need 10 people to do this, or 15, or whatever, 12, and the rest is done by AI. And so we built, when I was at Infosys, we built the NIA platform, we gave money to OpenAI, we did all of these things simply because of this idea that the 20 people going to 5 people plus AI is inevitable. Um, if the AI is yours, then you get to keep that whole package and say, I am going to deliver the entire thing. Instead of 20 people, I'm going to deliver it with 5 people plus AI. But if the AI is from somebody else, then all you have is the 5 people. All of a sudden, you went
Yeah.
from 20 people to 5 people, and the AI, whoever built the AI, is keeping the value. So it has to be your AI.
Yeah.
But then what happens is that your AI, it's an alien concept to a services company because they have been in, like you said, in the labor arbitrage, in the people business. So the easier thing to do is to change the delivery model, to say, okay, it is 5 people plus AI. Because, before SAP, when SAP came, the services companies used to do custom development. When SAP came, it was like this is an existential threat to them. But it became everybody built an SAP practice and it continued. So here you can build an AI practice. But the thing is that the disruption of your traditional business is dramatic.
Yeah.
So if you say, "Oh, I have 500 generative AI projects going on," that is great. But you have 40,000 projects that are affected by generative AI. What are you going to do about those?
True.
This is the issue. And the way it will manifest is you first start to lose margins because you are now competing with a AI enabled system. And so your prices keep dropping because on the other side there is AI, which is very cheap. Um, and so you will start to see margin erosion. It has already happened in some ways. Margins are significantly lower already than when I was running Infosys. Like Cognizant is around 14% margin. In my last quarter, we were 24 and a half or something like that. So the margin erosion is happening, and you see this disruption. So you can draw this as like a curve, and it's basically, can you manage the growth in the new thing faster than the decline in the old thing? And whoever manages that will survive, will still be here 5 years from now. Otherwise, there will be a lot of blood on the streets. Um, and my own sense is that what I tell, we have a big partnership with TCS. So I met the leadership of TCS last week, 2 weeks ago. And what I say to them is that, look, IT simplification with software and services is a real opportunity. It is a massive opportunity. So let us focus on growing there. And yes, we have to transform the existing business in the meantime, but we can keep growing in this new area really well. So you have to find areas like that in which to grow in the next 10 years. And we believe that what we are doing is one of these things.
So, Vishal, I want to explore a specific theme. And remember, I said that when we talked about the reliability accuracy, I
Yeah.
wanted to explore a specific hypothesis, which is that given that AI is fundamentally probabilistic, sometimes error prone, and you talked about two kinds of examples. One is finding a park in London to do a picnic versus, let's say, making an entry into your ERP after
Yeah.
paying a vendor basis an invoice, right? Where you can't be wrong, you can't be 90% right.
Yeah.
One of the themes that's being talked about today is a combination of AI and services, therefore, and whether that can be a massive opportunity for India, where AI does quite a bit of things, but the edge cases or the accuracy sort of assurance, if you will, and the judgment sometimes that a human needs to add, that's actually done through humans. So it becomes a bit of a blended model. We are
Yeah.
beginning to see a lot of companies which are combining this software and services. Would you say that that's a great opportunity for India today, or would you believe that look, it's actually not that big an opportunity?
It's a great opportunity, period. Of course, it is available to India, to everybody. it is difficult for services companies, legacy services companies, to transition to that for reasons that we talked about earlier. So if you abandon your model or you create new practices and say this is a new practice which is a software plus people practice or AI plus people practice, which does this, that, or the other in FP&A or accounts payables and receivables or software development or whatever, that it is an AI powered thing, the AI platform belongs to you somehow, you keep the economics of it. Yes, that is an incredible opportunity. And if a services company embraces that, this was exactly my point, that if a services company embraces that, while it is transforming the current business, the ongoing business, it will continue to grow, it will be relevant, it will have a future. Or you make a new company as an entrepreneur that offers this kind of a thing, where it is, um, services combined with AI. A services company that manages to build and grow that business while dealing with the death of the traditional way of doing things will survive. And this is exactly our point: is that what we are talking about, the transforming legacy software, transforming legacy IT complexity inside the enterprise, is this opportunity, which is far bigger than what is available today. Like in analytics alone, it is $400 billion a year of spend. And you are not just disrupting Tableau or Power BI or any of these systems, you are disrupting the entire chain that sits there today between the business user and the data that they need. And so you're essentially offering them this new kind of a capability. So this is an enormous opportunity. But
So Vishal,
Alok, I have to, since your audience is entrepreneurs, I have to say, don't just be limited to that idea, because
yeah,
in a sense that is taking what is known today and transforming that in the new way. Um, every time something like generative AI comes, there are a whole new collection of applications that show up that were simply not possible before.
that's right.
When the television first came, I remember I was a teenager when we got our first TV at home. You used to have a newsreader who would like hold a paper in their hand and they would be
That's
reading
right.
the. What is the point of that? You could put the picture of the newsreader on a radio and see the
Yeah,
same thing. The point of the television as a new medium was that completely new kinds of things are possible.
yeah,
YouTube is possible, or MTV, or live broadcasts of sporting events.
right.
Um, so, a next generation of applications. So we have one of our features in our product, Hila, is
Yeah,
this thing that we call deep analysis. And so, what happens is the CFOs or finance people can start asking questions like, what went wrong last quarter? What were the 10 interesting things that happened? How do I
right.
save, if I have to save 5% cost without compromising revenue? What do I need to do? Give me 10 ideas. And because in our technology, we have the ability to answer questions correctly, every time it probes into the database, it always gets a correct answer back. This is an unbelievable thing.
Yeah,
There is no team of people in the world who is fast enough to do this with a CFO.
yeah.
You would ask a question, then the McKinsey guys or the team
True,
of people will
true.
come back 5 days later. There is no way you can do this kind of a thing. So don't just think about transforming what is known today. Also think about what is it that is now possible that is completely new.
Yeah. Vishal, I want to explore one more theme which is India centric with you because you engage with the highest levels in the government in India as well. And thinking about India's AI strategy, and you've been very vocal in the past as well. In this new world, where do you think India's advantage in AI lies? And I guess partly what I'm also keen to explore, Vishal, is that do you believe that India needs to be investing in building its own foundational AI companies? Or do you believe that our edge will lie more on the AI applications or applied AI and services on top?
No, I was asked this question multiple times, when I was there in Delhi. Um, Alok, India is large enough, broad enough, and deep enough, and important enough that we should do all of that. We are, um, it is incredibly important for the future of the world that India gets this right. And the good news is that there is still a long road ahead. Um, yeah, we haven't done this for the last 3 years, but I mean, there are some, the AI technology today is incredibly flawed. It is incredibly expensive. It is incredibly rare in the hands of a chosen few people. There's a long journey ahead. You know, like I'm sitting in this room with six of these light bulbs. You can see them in the reflection there, right? Each one of these is a 100-watt light bulb. That is how much energy we consume in a day. Our entire body, 2000 calories that we eat, is basically one of these light bulbs. And the brain, our entire intelligence, our nervous system takes about 20 watts out of that. 20 watts. So, you wonder how much is that compared to when you train a GPT-5. It is about a billion, no, um, according to the experts, it is somewhere between 12 to 18 orders of magnitude more efficient. So 10 to the power of 12 to 10 to the power of 18, at least a trillion times more efficient. There are 12 zeros that need to be removed. So even if NVIDIA doubles every 6 months or whatever, there is a huge space ahead. And we don't have understanding of the physical world. We don't have an understanding of activities or grounding of concepts. And all of these fundamentals that are still missing. Um, so it is not like we lost, let us abandon, let other people build. I think that's a very, very bad idea. That's a very wrong idea. You have to build our own foundation models. Percy Liang at Stanford actually teaches a class on how anybody can build a foundation model, for God's sake. Why should we give that up? We are 1.5 billion people.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not like some preordained people have been asked by God to build foundation models and we are not one of them. Um, we have to build our own foundation models and we have to build the best, greatest, widest collection of applications on top of them, both of them. Who else will build them? So I'm very clear about that. So I think, and of course, all the languages, the work that we have in our manuscripts and our documents, the data that we have, these are all things that nobody else has. And now recently with the India stack, we have incredible amounts of data that nobody else has access to. So there is a lot that we can do that is different from everybody else.
Got it. Vishal, I do want to explore one forward looking theme as well, that, at one point we were talking about just basic cognitive intelligence. We started talking about AGI. I see a lot of chat in Silicon Valley today, even about super AGI. And at one point, I think at least I was very dismissive about many of those things. But the last 2.5 years, we have all begun to take notice. And what appeared like a pipe dream, I think just the pace of evolution has been mind boggling, and machines bettering humans at most cognitive tasks. If you were to sort of take a forward looking view on this, do you believe that there is a threat of mass unemployment and concentration of wealth now to just a few with this happening?
Yes, it has already happened. If you look at the distribution of wealth just in the last 15 years, it has become even more skewed. The statistics are incredible. The expertise in building foundation models. I was talking to a friend of mine, so, Sebastian Thrun, who was the founder of Udacity. So, by his estimation, I had mentioned the number of 25,000, that there are 25,000 people in the world today who can build a frontier model. Um, and I asked him before I showed up I gave a speech in Delhi where I had these numbers. And I asked him just before the speech that, hey, I just want to make sure that these numbers are okay. And he said it's probably 3,000. The number is not 25,000, Vishal, it is more like 3,000. 3,000 people, and 80% of them are in two cities, in San Francisco and in London. Not in the San Francisco Bay Area, in the city of San Francisco
Right.
and in the city of London. That's it. So this is really an unbelievable situation. How did this happen? This is why I mentioned Percy's class on building foundation models. You have to somehow disseminate this widely, so that more people are able to do these things, and it needs to be more democratized. The At the same time, the it is very clear to me. My son and I wrote a paper on the limitations of LLMs they're basically a kind of a lookup machine
True.
for a large amount of data. And to say that this thing is super intelligent and all that, it is nonsense. It's actually worse than nonsense. It does disservice to what the thing is, which is it's a powerful tool. It is like all of a sudden in your pocket now you have not just Google, but you have Google with an ability to tell you what it is doing.
Yeah.
Often it makes a mistake, but it's like you don't just get a pointer to some page that has the answer you're looking for. It generates the answer for you. But that's all it is. It is nothing more than that. It's a we used to have calculators, then we had Excel, then we had Google, and now we have this. So why are we not just happy with that? Hey, what can I do with this? Instead of saying, is this thing God? Is this thing super intelligent? This is all nonsense. It is the building that we are sitting in, both of us, are far more powerful than we are. Do we care? Um, you know, if technology exceeded human capabilities a long time ago. We are still here, we are still in charge. So I think we should just get on with it and build things with it. It is this kind of. But your question about mass unemployment, that really bothers me because I think that is more a function of how do we train our society? What kind of society are we building? Are we going to train people on what these things really are? Or are we going to keep this paradigm of training people for making a living, of doing a job like Cisco network maintenance or Oracle database administration, or you get a certificate and now it is versus how do you use these capabilities, use this technology to make a life. And this idea, the thing that I feel very hopeful about is that the prime minister of all the people actually really gets it. When I met him, he was talking about artisans, craftspeople, woodworkers, painters, you know, people in villages, and what AI could do for them. And if you think about it, AI empowers them. It helps them set up their shops. It helps them sell their thing. It helps them publish their thing in multiple languages. It helps them understand what other people are doing. These are all empowering things for their craft. And ironically, we will end up elevating those people, which is great. But the people who are coming from the educated class are the ones who are at the risk of employment. So, yes, there is a huge risk of mass unemployment, an imminent risk of mass unemployment. It is catastrophic, but it is in our hands to fix that, and it is fixable.
So, Vishal, with that, I want to come to just the last part, which is, you know, I remember that you were once an entrepreneur and you have actually gone back to entrepreneurship. Why back to entrepreneurship after being at so many large companies in the world?
I have we have 38 people in Vian now. When I left Infosys, we had 205,000. Um, I would love to. I would love to say it is some deep philosophy and analysis that I did and all that, but in reality, what happened was, I was tired of working in big companies, and I took the year off after leaving Infosys. And at the end of that year, it was very clear to me I wanted to get back to AI. I mean, I did my PhD in AI. I was involved in OpenAI in the early days and all that. And we were in Southeast Asia, and there are markets there, small markets. In Bangkok, there are souks. In Vietnam, there are these markets in Da Nang. In Bali, there are open air markets. And Vandana, my wife, was basically looking for some particular things. She makes jewelry, so she was looking for some components of making jewelry. And I was looking at all these shops, and I was like, how is AI going to affect these people in the next 20 years? And I just decided that none of the companies that were around at that time could be the ones that answer that question. So we have to build it ourselves. So it was just that.
Vishal, with that, I want to actually come to the last question. As you know, that a lot of the audience here are Indian founders. And the good news is that over the last 10 to 15 years, we have seen a lot of Indian companies come up building for the globe, right? Now, with the AI wave coming, what would be your advice to them, and what is it that they should keep in mind when they're building AI companies from India for the world?
As much as we become enamored with technology, including AI, in the end, business success is about solving a problem for a user, which is a human, and the understanding of their need, their pain, what it is that you're doing for them, what job are you doing for them, what problem are you solving. That is the paramount thing. We often shy away from solving that. And the local products, it is easy for us to adapt a product that somebody else built for a local context. It is easy for us to build it for others like us. Um, but the act of building a business in the end is not about the technology. It is about solving a problem that people care about and that people will pay you for. And so, in design thinking, we always talk about desirability, which is making something attractive to your user, viability, which is making money so that they are satisfied economically and it is viable for you. And there is feasibility, which is the engineering, the architecture, the technology. But in some sense, the technology, the engineering is the easiest part. Understanding the pain of the user and then creating a economic thing which serves that is the hard thing. So I think the local entrepreneurs, and I'm very encouraged that some of the products recently have come out. It took us a long time to get there, but it has happened now. We have global products that are coming out of India. Those people have to also become teachers. They have to carry the burden of how did they do it. Um, but ultimately, it is about understanding the all the Indian entrepreneurs who sit outside India and do this all the time. Like I have built so many products. Um, it is always about understanding the needs of the user and serving those needs in a way that is economically viable. Once you get that right, the technology, we are smart enough to figure out the technology to do that. I think that has been the missing thing. And that is now, fortunately, starting um, to get solved.
Great. Vishal, I have been a beneficiary of learning from you through the years of your mentorship and can't thank you enough for actually coming on our show today.
Absolutely.
Thank you so, so much. I really, really appreciate the conversation.
Thanks, Alok. It's a real pleasure. And looking forward to seeing you when you come back here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.